The blade was vibrating in my hand, and for a second, I thought the sheer force of my own pulse was going to shatter the steel against his collarbone. I had the kitchen knife pressed so hard against his throat that I could see the skin beginning to bunch, a white line forming under the blade, and he wasn't even struggling. He was just looking at me. Not with fear. Not with anger. He was looking at me with that same pitying, patient smile he'd worn since I was 10 years old. I felt the hot, metallic tang of adrenaline hitting the back of my throat, and I absolutely knew, that if I didn't push down in the next 3 seconds, I was going to lose my mind. I know how that sounds. People always say, I just snapped, but that's a lie. You don't snap. You build. You pile up bricks of resentment and lies and shitty memories until the floorboards can't hold the weight anymore, and then the whole house collapses on top of you. See, I didn't start this night intending to be a killer. I started this night just trying to get my deposit back. Rewind about 6 hours. My car was dying on the side of the interstate, ticking like a bomb about to go off, and I was staring at a bank balance that wouldn't cover a cup of coffee. I had been subletting this basement apartment from Elias for 3 months. It was a dump, damp, smelled like wet copper, and the radiator shrieked like a dying animal every time the temp hit 40 degrees. But it was cheap. Or it was supposed to be. Elias had been dodging my texts about the security deposit for weeks, and when he finally told me to meet him at the old family property, to settle up, I figured he was just being weird. He was always weird. I pulled up to the house at 11 p.m. It wasn't a house, really. It was a jagged, rotting Victorian tooth sticking out of a patch of overgrown pines. The windows were all boarded up, except for one on the second floor that glowed with a sickly, flicker-heavy yellow light. I should have turned around. My gut was screaming at me to put the car in reverse and drive until I ran out of gas, but I had exactly $12 to my name. I needed that deposit. I walked up the porch steps, and the wood groaned like it was warning me to leave. I pushed the front door open, and the smell hit me, not mold, not rot, but something sweet. Like rotting lilies and antiseptic. I called his name out, my voice sounding thin and small in the dark hallway. No answer. Just the sound of a metronome ticking somewhere upstairs. Asterisk click. Click. Click, asterisk. I walked toward the sound, following the narrow, spiraling staircase. Every step I took felt like I was walking deeper into a throat. At the top of the stairs, there was a heavy door, slightly ajar. I pushed it open, expecting to see Elias counting out cash, maybe an envelope on a desk. Instead, I saw a map. The entire floor of the room was covered in maps. Not paper maps, but carvings, deep, jagged gashes carved directly into the hardwood floor, glowing with a faint, bioluminescent dust. And in the center of the room sat Elias, hunched over a box. He wasn't surprised to see me. He didn't even look up. He just said, "You're early, but the timing is perfect. The alignment doesn't care about your bank account, kid." How could he have known about the money? I'd never told him how broke I was. I'd spent months pretending I was just between gigs, while I ate ramen and hid my car keys so he wouldn't see the repossession stickers. I felt that cold wash of dread, the kind that starts at the base of your skull and numbs your fingers. I stepped back, my heel catching on a floorboard, and that's when I saw the photos pinned to the walls. They weren't of the house. They were of me. There was me at the grocery store 3 weeks ago, blurry, from a distance. There was me sleeping in my car last night. There was me, just 5 minutes ago, walking up the driveway. My breath hitched, and I felt the air in the room get heavy, pressurized, like I was at the bottom of a deep sea. "I'm leaving," I said, my voice cracking. I turned to run, but the door, the heavy oak door I had just pushed open, was gone. In its place was a solid wall of brick, mortar still wet, dark and glistening. I spun back toward Elias. He stood up, and he was taller than he'd ever been in the basement. He reached into that wooden box and pulled out a knife. It wasn't a kitchen knife, it looked like something ripped out of a museum exhibit, obsidian and serrated. "I didn't steal your money," Elias said, his voice sounding like two stones grinding together. "I've been investing it. Buying back the time you lost. You think you're broke because of bad luck? You're broke because you've been selling your tomorrows to keep your todays afloat. And I'm the broker." He tossed the obsidian knife toward me. It skittered across the floor, stopping inches from my boots. "You want your deposit back? Take it from me. But if you kill the broker, you own the debt. That's the rule of the house." My brain was fragmenting. The room seemed to pulse with that yellow light, and the carvings on the floor were beginning to smoke. I didn't think, I just grabbed the blade. It was freezing cold, colder than ice, burning my skin as I gripped it. I lunged at him, mostly out of terror, mostly because I just wanted the noise in my head to stop. And that brings us to the moment where I started. Me, the knife against his throat, the adrenaline screaming, and Elias, smiling that terrifying, patient smile. "If you do it," he whispered, his voice steady despite the blade, "you inherit the basement. You inherit the clients. And you'll be the one waiting for the next desperate soul to show up at the front door." I tightened my grip. I could feel the life in him, a thrumming, vibrating energy that made my teeth ache. I thought about my car on the side of the road, the eviction notice, the empty fridge, the absolute void of a future I was staring into. If I killed him, did the debt just vanish? Or did it move into my blood? I pushed. There was no resistance. It was like cutting through smoke. Elias dissolved into a cloud of fine, gray ash that swirled into the air, coating my clothes, my skin, my eyes. The room went pitch black, the yellow light vanishing, and the brick wall where the door had been simply crumbled into dust. I stumbled back, falling out of the doorway and onto the landing of the stairs. The house was silent. No ticking. No smell of lilies. Just the sound of my own ragged, panicked breathing. I scrambled down the stairs, falling, sliding, throwing myself out the front door and onto the porch. My car was still there, sitting exactly where I'd left it. I threw myself into the driver's seat, jammed the key into the ignition, and prayed. The engine roared to life on the first try. It sounded better than it had in years. I drove for 3 hours, not stopping, not looking back, until I hit the city limits. I was shaking so hard I could barely steer. I pulled into a rest stop, wanting to wash the ash off my hands. I went into the bathroom and turned on the faucet, scrubbing my skin with rough paper towels and soap. I looked into the mirror, and I froze. The ash was gone, but the reflection staring back at me wasn't quite mine. My eyes were the same, my face was the same, but behind me, in the reflection of the bathroom stall, there was a man standing there. It was me. Not a ghost. It was me, wearing the same clothes I'd had on 3 months ago when I first moved into the basement. I watched in the mirror as my double stepped forward and rested a hand on my shoulder. "You did good," the double whispered, his voice an echo of my own. "The transition is complete. You're the broker now." I spun around, but the stall was empty. I looked back at the mirror. My reflection was gone. I touched the glass, but I couldn't see my hand. I could feel the cold surface, but I had no image, no shadow, no presence. I looked down at the sink. No reflection of my body, no reflection of the room. Just a clean, empty bathroom. I ran outside to the car, hoping that if I moved, if I drove fast enough, I could catch up to myself. But the car wouldn't start. I reached for the handle, but my fingers went straight through the metal, like I was made of nothing more than mist and regret. Then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I reached for it, and somehow, my fingers managed to interact with the screen. I pulled it out. There was a single text message from an unknown number. Asterisk, new client arriving at the house in 10 minutes. Try not to keep them waiting. They're very desperate. Asterisk.